Hello, am I audible? Hi guys, hi Fiza. Welcome again to the workshop and then MasterClass. Let's just wait for a couple of minutes and then we can probably start, right? Uh, I guess people are joining late. Yeah, it's Sunday also, so they're having their weekend, right? So
No worries. We can wait for another 5 minutes and then we can start.
let's just wait for 5 to 10 minutes.
Sure.
Uh, Meanwhile, there's like a couple of things. If I'm sure people would be interested to know about you, right? So I mean, while I was, yesterday you told, right? You started from the developer's perspective, and from software engineering to PM. So what were your hurdles? I mean, while navigating through the whole process of getting into PM, what were your major hurdles that you felt like, okay, here are the things that I need to work on?
Right.
So,
So I get that question a lot. In fact, I think even today I face that issue. When as a software developer, you're really technically driven, right? So when I say that, I mean that you're mostly thinking of what am I solving for? What is the best way in which I can really optimize my solution? But once you have to put on your PM hat, what you're really doing there is thinking of, is this problem worth solving? Is it what is the why of this business? You have to keep on asking yourself as to why am I really solving this problem? What is
hmm,
it really bringing it into my business? And is it worth solving for? Like I said, so I think that happens even today when I'm doing things and I'm working on the technical sides of things in Microsoft itself, given my core Adobe Creative Cloud background.
right.
So when that happens, I have to take a step back and start thinking that will this bring in enough revenue to Microsoft if that is something that we're solving for? Will this bring enough customer satisfaction if that is another OKR that we have set? So primary level of things becomes to setting your goals first in terms of, okay, this is the objective I'm solving for, and this is the key result that I want out of it.
Okay, okay. Cool. Awesome. Awesome. And like couple of more things like suppose mostly we get to know a lot of tear downs in this whole space of product, right? Suppose if randomly if you come across any product, okay, suppose if I suggest Cred or maybe Zerodha, okay. So what are the first like couple of things that you notice first in a product? Okay, if you need to do a tear down, this is my sort of framework that because initially I like yesterday you also mentioned there are a lot of frameworks which makes people overwhelmed, like what I need to use where. And so I was reading it, and mostly experienced PM like seasonal PMs, they suggested this thing that by the time you have your experience, you tend to create your own frameworks, boiling down. Okay, this
Yes.
is the way you go around it. So like to tear down any product out of nowhere, if you are given a product, so what is your walkthrough of it? Okay, this is how I'll be tearing it down.
So if it is a product, the very first question that I ask myself is like, apart from the goal, right? Objective is to what this product is solving for, is who is it solving it for? So in my experience working at an ed tech, so it was a startup that I was working for, and we wanted to focus on lifelong learners. So, and lifelong learners can be anyone. The problem there was that we had to narrow down as to really who the customers are and what their problems would be. So let's say even if you say Zerodha, they have a very specific customer segment that they want to bring to that financial knowledge. In that segment, it is millennials or Gen Z who are not that financially adept, but they want to be, and you want to make them more financially literate, right? So that literacy is still not there amongst the youth, and they know exactly the market and why it is so popular now is because it caters to the needs of Gen Z and millennials. So I think that's the very first thing I step into before solving any problem.
So that's the like their sort of the demographics they target and their customer base. Like,
Right, because if you generalize it, because you would want a product to be for everyone,
hmm,
that's the biggest market. But you would really want to know the actual addressable market, who are the people who will actually adopt and use your product. I mentioned
yeah,
yesterday, the biggest nightmare is you building a product and then no one using it. In my journey, I have sort of seen that as well.
right,
Um,
right.
yes.
So awesome. And like one more, there is bit of skepticism around that being a product manager, you need to be, awesome, or maybe, be 100% best at everything like growth, UI, UX design. I mean, because mostly while you are in the process of, getting there, people tend to focus, okay, if suppose they are learning UI, UX design. So they even try to create exact mockups rather than wireframe. They think like, maybe someday if I would be designing. So is it really that you need to be that much of a specialist in each and every segment? So how is it? I mean, you really need to know each and every detail if you're into UI UX, or if you talk about growth aspect, or it's more of a collaborative space where you need to have an idea of that space, which makes it going forward a bit easier. So what is your suggestion on it?
Okay, so what good PMs would do, they would probably think that, let's say for designing, if I do it, I'm going to do it quicker. This is my idea. I can ideate it better than anybody can. And I can do the research work as well. And I can also probably having some coding experience, just code a prototype and just give it out there, right? That's what a good PM would do. But that's not what a great PM would do, because you one of the key skills that you need to have, and also it's a very smart thing to do, is make others do stuff for you without having that influence over them. So you're not really authoritative and being like, hey, make this for me, make that for me, but you're just sharing your idea and making them part of your idea. So once that starts happening, you are getting engineers excited about products that they're building. You're getting you share your ideas about the design. So I have made a couple of wireframes by hand using apps. All of that I've done, but you have to also trust that the designers have the expertise in design. They would understand the design language. They would know what the customer would prefer seeing, what color tones they would seeing, what UI they would prefer, right? So you have to also put your trust there. And yes, collaboration is the biggest skill there. You can go into market research and just see what the landscape is like, but there are researchers for it. Leverage that skill.
Right, right. So it's like more of a suggestive proposal that you put it across, right? Okay, maybe
Right,
this would be a possibility that we can explore in these arenas, right?
right.
So, okay, I guess the people have joined and we can kickstart the session. It was a quick sort of catch up around few couple of questions that I thought many of already would be wondering, okay, what is your scenario? Okay, let's just start off the session. Over to you, Fiza. So, yeah.
All right. Hi, everybody. Welcome back. Today we will be covering, let me know once if you're able to see my screen. Yes, I think I'm displaying it now.
Yep.
So what I will be sharing with you today is I have a couple of very interesting things that I have included in this PPT with the feedback that you folks had shared. So watch out for that, because I really have, I'm very strong on taking feedback and incorporating one of the PM skills I've learned during my journey. Today we'll be focusing on design thinking, some part of which we had partially covered in the previous workshop. But I've also included the strategy bit here as feedback I'd gotten. We'd want to also cover a few, maybe a question on strategy. So that's a bonus I have for you today, tonight. Okay, I will be skipping a little about me. This I had we had done. There I'm a software engineer at Adobe. I've done my MBA and went to the Google Business Academy, and now I'm a current PM at Microsoft. But having said this, a few of you have also asked me whether we can be PM without an MBA. And me being very customer, I'm a customer advocate, and I really like to reach out to people to solve these problems, right? So yesterday I went, in fact, today as well, I spoke to a few people who were able to crack to product management without an MBA. So again, I'm not them, but in my conversation with them, since I cannot have them here, I try to break down as to how they were able to do it without an MBA. Few pointers there. Yes, it took a little longer while, but it was cheaper. So it does not cost you the 20 lakh MBA, the the tuition fees or anything. But it was slightly longer than the career trajectory that I have taken. So we'll walk through three personas. I will not be mentioning their names as they had, I mean, it's not the best practice. So I'll just be talking about what their journey was and how they were able to crack it. The first persona we have here, they were a BTech and they were a software engineer in a firm X. So let's say they've not done an MBA. What did they really do? They were able to transition to a product management role in the same firm. And after doing that, so this took a couple of years. And after that, they were able to transition to a product manager role at a big tech firm. Now, how did they do it? So, a few pointers from my conversation with them. They said that while being a software engineer, they started pivoting towards product management. What that means is they realized that, okay, coding is not their thing and they really want to move to product management. So, what did they do about it? They shared their career goals with their manager. And this was kind of an inclusive atmosphere where they were able to share their career aspirations without it being affected. And then they were able to develop some relevant skills related to product management. So they identified what are the skills required for that role, what they don't really have. And then they applied within the same firm, and the rest is history. So when I say big tech firm, this is somebody I know personally, and this is what their career trajectory was. Second is another person whom I have worked with closely. She was an MA, so Masters of Arts, and she's done it from TIS. And she started as a program coordinator at some firm, and eventually realizing that this is not something she absolutely wanted to do. And mostly not because she was very passionate about product management, but also she realized the gap between the salaries. So she moved to project management first, after which she did not get enough opportunities within that firm to become a product manager, which could be a case for most of us. At Adobe as well, I was not getting enough opportunities to directly switch to product management. So what she did was she went to become a product manager at a startup. So now once she has that tag of a product manager, it is much easier for her to move to a product management role anywhere outside of um, her firm. So how did she really do it? She realized that she has developed an interest in product management, and she did not find the opportunities like I told you in her firm. So she quit her job and she actually posted a proper note on LinkedIn saying that she's looking for opportunities. Where she had to compromise was the pay in the beginning. So in the beginning, she started at the same pay scale as a product manager as she was doing earlier. So that is where she had to make a little compromise, but she was able to switch actively. And so she's still at the startup, and now she's progressing to move to product management to a bigger firm. So once you have the tag, it's rather easier to switch to a bigger firm. Okay, coming to the third very interesting persona, she is an MSc, and she realized that what is the closest job to being a product manager, since she is not from a tech firm, she's not from a really good engineering college either. So she's just an MSc. So what does she do next? She figured out that being a product manager, the closest thing to being a product manager could be QA analyst. So this is mostly around quality analysis, right? And she kind of started helping her team with the requirement analysis. So that is how her QA experience started coming in. She took out a stretch goal of being a some product management skills that she developed through a stretch goal within the same firm. So again, she's still at firm X, but she's doing a stretch goal outside of her work. That is just developing the PM skills. Then, after which, when she applied to a different firm, she is now a product manager at a big tech firm. This firm, I think I'm allowed to say, is from Freshworks. So she is at Freshworks right now. Again, what are the learnings that we get from here is that that she wanted to develop the skills. So she joined the PM, some kind of a project that she wanted to do, some PM skills that she could develop, right? What is a key takeaway from her journey is that apart from this, she was also part of a couple of PM communities. So PM communities like um, Insurjo, Hello PM, all of these communities that she was part of, and she would interact with folks there. And whenever anybody would post a PM opportunity, that is how she moved to product management. So I really hope this was helpful, and this kind of encourages you in case you do not have an MBA and you're still looking to crack product management. You have a very good chance. And this is just a day of talking to people wherein I could meet like 3 people who've actually done this. Um, all right. So then I'll move to the next part of it. Is that how is this workshop relevant to PM interviews? We spoke about behavioral questions. So some of you had mentioned that you wanted to know more behavioral questions. What questions can be asked? So one of them could be, tell me a time that you had failed. So think of a time when you were not able to collaborate in your team and you might have had a project that failed. How did you overcome from it? Is what an answer that your interviewer is looking for, because failure is something which is inevitable. You're going to face it at some point or the other in your career. So how do you tackle it? There are other questions like tell me a time when you deferred an opinion from one of your teammates. So answering that question, why the interviewer is asking you that question is only to bring in whether you are able to work with differences at work. And then your final focus is on the product instead of anything else, instead of your personal differences. Okay, coming to tech questions. So not again, I've mentioned that not everybody gets these tech questions, but what they can look like is what happens when you make a Bing search. So that's a technical question. But what we'll be majorly focusing on in the first half of this PPT is product design questions. What can these look like in an interview? The first question could be, what is your favorite product and why is it your favorite product? What This can be again a tech product or a physical product. So for a tech product, you can say that my uh, favorite product is Duolingo. And what the interviewer is trying to figure from this question is, how do you break that product, um, just navigate through the user journey, and how are you able to bring in the highlights from it, right? So how would you really answer this in terms of a product question rather than just okay, my favorite product is this app or any random things. That how structured your answer is what you're really looking for. Okay. Next question that you can expect is, how would you critique the design of a product? Again, this is more like a question on which is one product that you don't like. So write the opposite of your favorite product. Okay. Next question is, what new feature would you design for Amazon Eco? So this is again a design question, introduction of a new feature. And lastly, how would you design like a Facebook home screen? So this is how these questions are really disguised in an interview. Now, believe me not that these design questions are mostly in your interviews for around 99% of the time. So every product interview that you're going to go through will have these questions. So I know most of you said that we also want to know about product strategy and behavioral questions. Those you might still not get, but a design question is something that you will always get in a product interview question. Okay. So why do we really need to focus on design thinking? So coming up with an idea is easy, but the right one is what takes time. So we as engineers and business people are trained to solve problems, and we can have really brilliant ideas and solutions to it. But if it is the wrong problem that you're really solving for, then a worse solution is better than no solution at all. In my whole internship experience, I have a very interesting story to tell. There was another intern that I was working with. For 8 weeks of work, my time went in analyzing, okay, I'll do some market research on what the product is. I want to see what we are solving for, how we can solve it, why we are solving it. And at the end of the day, I created this really fancy PPT, 7th week, and it was fine. I got good reviews. And this other intern who was working with me, they spend this entire time on answering whether they should solve it or not. So the final PPT only had a couple of sliders which said, "Do not go ahead with this product," and they got the final rule. So it's very interesting. Again, as product managers, you have to think of why of things. If you're telling the company not to make the product, you're saving them a lot of revenue, and that is a successful product. Okay, coming to why so why design thinking. There are a couple of aspects which we have to think of. So first could be, why do products really fail? I'll give you an example of the Google Glass, if you've heard of it. So it was a brilliant solution, but was it really the right problem that they were solving for? The issue here is that if we give the user a poor experience, your product is rather bound to fail, right? And a bad design is just one of the reasons. The main reason why this failed is because of its very floppy implementation. Now, if you look at Google Glass, like one of the questions that was asked to me in the very beginning was, what is the first thing that you really look at when you're solving from a problem, apart from the goal of why we are solving it? It is the customer. The glass is competing with other devices that really boasted of very good cameras and larger capabilities, faster processors, all of that, right? But what was the value that it was bringing to the customer? Would the users be comfortable wearing a camera on their glass? Or would it also be the people who are on the other side of the glass? How comfortable would they be? Given the entire scenario, the market when it was planning to be launched, it was a hue and cry about users' privacy, how users' data is being used, how it is being captured. So, in identifying who the Google Glass is solving this fraud, I think that is where exactly it failed. These are all my thoughts, but yet again, to think of it that they had branded it as a luxury product. So when you say you're bringing in a luxury product, uh, people will spend enormous amount of money on luxury items, but why do they do it? Because they find some identity with it, right? So I will wear a Prada spec, but that's only because I know it's bringing some value to my fashion, or it's I'm tying it to my identity. But Google Glass did not have that component in it, and well, it just turned out that it was superficially it wasn't that cool. The second reason why companies, firms, they focus on design thinking, it is because they need own innovation. Coming to why do firms need innovation? It is for two reasons. One of them is to sustain in the market, and the other is to disrupt the market. All right, I have a couple of examples for you, very recent examples. For sustaining in the field, we can take the example of Microsoft that had acquired LinkedIn for a whooping, I think, a $20 billion, if I'm not able to recollect the exact number, 19.2 billion, but it was a huge sum of amount. Why did they really sustain this? Or why did they really acquire LinkedIn? The reason here is to be competitive. If they did not require LinkedIn, Facebook is a community that is growing. It works on interpersonal connections, but what if it also catered to professional networks? So there was a huge threat there. And Microsoft, we know, is the world's leading professional cloud. So that is what it has. And LinkedIn is also the leading professional network. So they found a common mission that is centered to empowering people and organizations together, and it is connecting the whole professional world. This concept of synergies, something we'll be talking about when we combine design thinking and strategy. So it is where it is going to come in and become more relevant when you talk of it. Now here with this, to sustain in the market, we were able to capture the entire landscape of the enterprise world. Okay, to disrupt the market. What does it mean to disrupt the market? It just simply means that there is an existence, major players in the market, but you bring in such kind of a technology or such kind of a design which is going to bring a huge change in the market. So here is an example of Airbnb. You can see this is some graphics that I got from renting your place, wherein you can see the amount of users that have grown overnight with Airbnb trying to disrupt the market. The problem that they were able to identify is that users do not have enough money to book all these hotels. And what did people really want? People who wanted to rent and people wanted to rent and people wanted to stay in these places. So once they were able to identify it, they disrupted the entire hotel chain. And this kind of a thinking is what brought that change. Okay, I'll pause for a minute. In case folks have any questions, please go ahead and post them in the chat or raise your hand. If not, I'll move ahead. All right, so what really is design thinking? Some of you had asked me to explain that bit. Okay, I see a question in the chat. It's from Zen. It says we can say that the product did not just have to emphasize with the user, but also with non-users. Can you elaborate this a bit?
Yeah, so I was basically thinking that Google Glass kind of inhibited the privacy of non-users as well. Basically, people whom it would be recording or maybe storing data of. So, in a way, it kind of did not empathize with those non-users. So, can
Right.
we kind of extend this logic to, or maybe can we even use this logic in product interviews for other products?
So this is a very common situation. The primary person, the primary persona is the person who's wearing the glass. The secondary persona is the persona who is being recorded or being seen through that glass. So that is very rightly pointed out. And I think I'd mentioned this in my problem for the pen as well, right? When you're building a pen, so the student is the user, but there are secondary personas like the teacher or the parent of that student who is helping them use the pen. So yeah, thank you for rightly pointing that out. Okay. So someone would ask me to explain what the iterative process is, apart from the circles method. So iterative process is somewhat similar to what this is. So you have an hypothesis, you build something, you implement it, and then you learn through that process. This again is something very similar to it, wherein first, for any design thinking problem, what you want to do is to clarify what the problem is. So turning your ideas into product, what you really need is one philosophy, and the other is a set of tools to solve that problem creatively, right? So here, what you really need is to empathize with the customer, and to do that, you have to really ask what you're solving for and who are the users you're solving for. I think I've mentioned it again, so I'll just skip this bit and I'll move on to the next part, which is to ideating it, right? What you see in the center is the SCD, means human-centered design. So this entire problem kind of stays at being very close to your customer. It has to be very human-centered, right? So user-centric approach to solving any problem. This is what will lead to maybe innovative ideas and can also lead to differentiation and give you the competitive advantage while you're thinking of problems. So if you're really close to your users and what they are looking for, is when you can just think of really crazy ideas while you're ideating for a solution. Next is to develop. This developing process, again as PM, we have to create a few prototypes. I will speak of it in a little bit more length once we are further into this slide. And lastly is to implement whatever you have envisioned, whatever you have, if you have a working prototype, whatever feedback you've gotten through it, after that improving it, and then implementing what that is, right? Okay. So now this process is non-linear. What I mean by non-linear is that it's going to go from the stage of clarifying to the stage of development, then maybe coming back to clarify what you were solving for, then going forth and implementing it, getting some feedback from the users, again coming back to clarifying, testing, all of that, right? So when we say empathize with the users, what we mean is learn about the audience for whom you are designing, right? Who is my user? What really matters to them? So create a point of view based on your user's need. Now define what the users need are, what the product goals are, right? Okay. So coming to ideating, there are a few pointers there that you must think of. So this is only elaborating to what we've spoken of yesterday. I'm elaborating more on when you're ideating, what are the processes that you can go through. And this will be helpful even in all of your design interviews, like product design interviews. So when you're ideating for a problem, you have to think of a few things. One is the usefulness. So is the product useful? If it solves the problem, it is purported to. Um, Ease of use, as in under, understandability of the product. Is the product easy to use? Is it intuitive enough? Efficient, which means that does the product solve or minimizes any work for the user who is using your product? Does it delight the user? So customer satisfaction is very important. As a user experience that you're going to give to the user, does it really delight the user? And also communication in the sense that it's necessary to take the feedback from the user and dispel any kind of confusion to avoid mistakes on how your product is to be used. The next stage is developing. So once you come to developing the product, here is where you brainstorm and come up with all sorts of creative ideas and possible solutions. Again, question in the beginning of the conversation where I was asked whether collaboration is a need for a PM. Yes, it is a need. This is where you'll be collaborating a lot, using all of the teams around you to be able to create a prototype and communicate your idea with them, and also incorporating whatever they are saying works for your prototype or does not work for your prototype. The testing bit comes there. If you see the few icons that I have written, like pasted down below, those are all the wireframing tools which are very important if you are a PM. You don't have to ultimately learn end to end how to use these products, but if you do have some knowledge of it, it kind of helps. And it is very impressive if you pull them out in a product interview, in a case interview, and kind of start using them and in the process of wireframing rather than using a simple whiteboard. So the first one you see there is Figma, second one is Adobe XD, third one is Balsamic, and the fourth one is Marvel. Balsamic is something that I started with because it's really very easy, but it looks rather naive and childish. But it's something to start with, and it has all of these presets which will help you build a website, a phone, a mobile app, or anything of that sort, right? Adobe XD and Figma are a little more technical, but they sort of bring that professional sense. So Figma will not take more than a day to learn at least the basics. So you can go to YouTube, figure out the best videos, and I would suggest definitely try to get some hands-on experience on both of these. Now, Marvel is one very interesting app wherein what you can do is create a wireframe using a pen and paper, take pictures of it, upload it, and then you can program the buttons. So maybe one box that you had created, you can say once I click on it, it should take me to the second wireframe. So it's again another picture that you have created. So I think this is a great practice, and if you have the time, you can definitely test your hands here. All right. And then we come to the final stage, which is implement. Share it with the user. This is the stage where you can share it with the user, empathize with them, and look for faults that you can find here. There was one very interesting graph that I was seeing on if you make bugs here right up to the implementation stage, right? So that's going to cost you 16x times the cost if you were able to ideate and clarify it there. Now what happens is that you again go back to step one, and this process keeps on going. So maybe you're in ideation state, you again have to go to clarify. Maybe you implement something post which again you have to come back and ideate on things. So it's an iterative process. All right. Now we'll be moving on to an interesting case study. This is an Oral-B case study, which is again specifically on design thinking and also a little bit on leans towards the strategy of the firm. So what Oral-B wanted to do was to build an electric toothbrush. So this is a standard toothbrush, and it wanted to build an electric toothbrush, right? What happens is, as a firm, they thought that user's need could be so and so. So they hired a couple of designers. Kim and Sam is what I remember by their names. And they said that what we want you to do is to improve the function for the electric brush. So just add a few, they requested them to add a few functions, right? So what were these functions? They wanted them to add a tracking brush frequency, to track, sorry, brush frequency. That is how many times is the user brushing. Then observe gum sensitivity. I'm so sorry for that spelling error. I'll change that. And the electric toothbrush must also be able to play calming music. Now, these are requirements that they gave to the designer, and now they wanted them to solve for it. But do you think this was really the right approach? No, it was not. Very clearly, they were jumping to conclusions, and this is not something that we as, if we work in companies or as product managers are supposed to think. We are supposed to go through a very structured process. And why did they solve for this? So when these designers went back to them and they asked them, why do you want to solve for this, right? So they said, we want to grow the market. The consumer market needs to grow. And the product design is, this is where the product design is actually tying to the strategy of the company. So again, why it's relevant. Now it's easy to find a few hundred users who will buy a new product, but it is really hard to find a new 1,000 users who will be using the future iterations of this product. So now while clarifying the problem, both of these designers, they pointed out that brushing teeth was rather, this is a clarifying stage again, is rather a neurotic activity wherein it brings a very calming effect to folks. And yeah, and this all these new features that you've added are going to add in some kind of stress to the users, wherein their data is being tracked, and these kind of, I don't know, they really answer the problems that the user is really looking for, and how should we really solve for the user experience without adding these very gimmicky features. So the first recommendation that they came up with in their ideation state of things is that they said that what the customer really needs is a device that is very easy to charge, and the replacements that you get, it should be really convenient for them to get. So now you see the very stark difference between the initial proposal and once they spoke to customers and what the user needs were. So this kind of shows that really stark difference in those things. Once you're jumping to conclusions, so you're like, okay, no, this is what I feel they would need. But once you start clarifying and digging deep, this is what this you actually find out. Later on, they were able to roll it out, and as you know, some folks have actually really adopted the electric toothbrush. There's still a large market to explore, but these proposals were successful because they were focused on what the user really wanted and not what the company initially wanted to roll out. Okay. So I don't want this to get any monotonous. So I have a challenge for all of y'all. What we're going to do is you have to make someone do something without giving them any instructions. So I'm going to tell you what you have to make them do. I'm going to give you 5 minutes to think about the problem. What you have to do is step 1, the user needs to pick up a box. So there is a room, a user walks into it, and the first step that they have to do is pick up a box. Second, they need to shake the box. And third, they need to toss the box. Now, all of this you have to make them do without giving them any instructions whatsoever. So you can't write them down. You can't go and nudge them and say, okay, this is what you're supposed to do. The product that you are building is supposed to the user is supposed to do these things without any instructions. So take 5 minutes. I'm interested in knowing what all you'll be thinking, and please put all your answers in the chat. Again, no right and wrong answers. This is just a brainstorming activity that we'll have together. I hope it is clear as to what you have to do. Can you please raise your hands if you've understood what I have asked you to do in this activity? Okay, all right. So give me your answers in the chat to how you'll make the user do these things. Okay, one of the answers that we've gotten is you're going to gift wrap it and put the person's name on it. Okay, so if I enter a room and I'm going to see a gift wrap, I might just pick it up. I may or may not shake it, not necessarily I'm going to shake. Maybe what if it's delicate is what I'm thinking. And I'm definitely not going to toss it. If it's my gift, why would I toss it? Let's say shaking, yes. Keep something in the box which is going to make sound. How will I know whether it's going to make sound unless I know if it's going to make sound? No, it cannot have a visual cue. So without wasting any further time, I'd like to suggest a few things. This is not something that I've gotten from my, oh my God, very funny ideas, keeping a bomb in the box. No, not at all. Never suggest. I think I like the idea what Pankaj is mentioned here, that you probably want to, it should give user current to the user. These are very weird ideas you all are getting. No, please never harm the user. The customer is God. Have you not heard? All right. Keeping the jokes aside, I think what I like. the very first thing that I think when I got this problem, I also missed. Things that I should be seeing in the chat should be questions for me. So who is the user? Is it a child? Is it a really, is it an elderly person? When I said it's in a room, what kind of a room is it? Does it have glass walls? Is it an open area? Is it, like someplace in the park? So first ask as to who the customer is, who you're solving for. And then out of all these ideas, I really like the dice bit, because the dice bit is a visual I mean, it is a visual cue, which you were not technically supposed to use. But if you were really to design a product and you were to build something in it, you'd probably go pick a dice and like probably shake it and then toss it. So that was the closest to what we could have thought of, right? No, you cannot write on the box, Shivam. You can't write anything on the box. So you're not to give them any instructions, they're just to see it. So what really, this is just an exercise to see what really was a good design. There was another answer that I'd gotten earlier, not from this conversation, but another conversation, wherein they made a sort of a that pinball game, if you've seen. That pinball game, you're supposed to take the ball and, like sort of shake it, right? And like toss it to make it reach that pinhole. So that was also quite an interesting thing. But again, always ask who the user is. So if it's like my old grandmom, she's not going to go and be interested in like doing all of that anyway. All right. Now we come to the very interesting. Okay, before we move to we move further. Do you have any questions? Any questions? After this, I've thought of. I mean, not. Maybe we can have a breakout room session in which I'm going to give you a problem, and then we can probably solve that together later once you're out of the breakout room. Okay, I have a question from Zen.
Yeah, so I had a question. So you talked about design thinking and how it can be used during the interviews. So basically, what I'm trying to think is that we would be that maybe design thinking would be useful in ideating about what kind of problems the user is facing, and then is my solution feasible, or probably what would be the right solution if at all there is a solution to the problem. So is my understanding correct? Is the design thinking coming there?
Yeah, you're spot on. So in your design thinking interviews, it helps you first, very important step of clarifying as to what you're building, who you're building it for. And then moving on to when we said implement, right? And that implementation stage is very similar to that circles method of improving your solution. So once you have all solutions listed, how do you really eliminate, have trade-offs, and then come to a final solution? This entire process you can go ahead and do with your interviewer. And in the next segment of our conversation, I will also be delving through how you can ask clarifying questions. Because what I saw yesterday was most of the questions being asked were rather being uh, kind of, pricing out the answer from the interviewer. And that is now not how it should be, because the interviewer will not help you or answer those questions for you. So I think that will also help. But yes, this process is something you can use in the interview. This is more of that iterative process, the second one that we were seeing outside of the circles method. And this fits best to design thinking problems. Does that answer your question then? All right, so no further questions. We will now move to product strategy questions. All right, so what do these questions really look like? Few questions that you can expect in strategy. And this ties again very closely to this entire design thinking that we thought of. Even in the Oral-B case, we saw how designers had to start thinking of strategies of growing the market, right? So questions like, should Facebook have a travel feature? Another question could be like, what if you're a CEO of so-and-so company? In this case, I mentioned Paytm. So what if you're a CEO of PM? What would you do then? Another question could look like, what if, how would you launch a new feature, location-based feature, let's say within Netflix? So now you're a PM at Netflix, how would you answer this question? And lastly, a question that I have gotten, it's rather vague and ambiguous, but it's how would you improve the health of the internet? Again, very vague. So if you do not have a structure, if you're not really asking as to what health means, what do you mean by improve? What do you mean? How do you define the internet? Is it just a space on the web? How do you really define it? So if you're not asking these questions, you can really not answer this question. It's so vague. And another question could be that, can you build a pricing model for Twitter blue ticks? So pricing model for anything rather. So let's say you're working for upgrad and you're giving students packages to learning packages, right? So how would you price that? So out of the first four, these are strictly strategy questions, strategy and execution questions, right? Um, but I mean, but this pricing model is something that I've listed further, and I'll be discussing it as another segment. But the first four are directly those questions. Now, what are these questions really? What are they asking you? So, speaking of um, the first question, it is about entering or expanding market. So how do you really enter into an existing market, or how do you expand your base in another market? So for example, question could be Google wants to, let's say, delve into the cell phone market. So how do they enter it? Although Google is mostly there. So let's say Microsoft wants to enter the cell phone market. How do they do it now? Right. Now, second question directly goes to defining company strategy. So if you're a CEO of, let's say, Netflix, how do you really, what do you do next so that the company is better? Again, ask what better means, but this question means is directly a company strategy. Third is clearly a go-to-market strategy question. So if a new product is being launched, that is the keyword there. Improving the health of the internet is rather a vague question, but what I want to put it in is building new tech or business. So it's probably trying to ask you, how will you improve the health? And if you're going to improve the health, you have to build in something new for that. So here it could be, let's say the internet speed was 100x faster. What are some of the businesses you could start with this technology? So this is a very similar question to that. And lastly, like I said, the pricing strategy is a monetizing strategy, which I will discuss in another segment, just a slide or two. Okay, so how will you really solve for these problems? I have a structured way of solving this, and I bring to you the, it's called the 5C method. So we'll be discussing about the 5C method in this. And this is different from how so far we've been solving from product strategy questions. It's slightly different, right? If you try to solve execution or strategy questions with the help of product design, you will not fail. You will still get to some kind of an answer or a solution that you're trying to put. But I believe, in my understanding and in all the questions that I have attempted so far, this framework sort of helps you answer it better, kind of extends your thinking to also the like market thinking, not just focus on the consumer. Okay, so what is really being tested in this sort of a question, execution or strategy question, is how well you can think. So how well are you able to tackle ambiguous problems? Are you able to brainstorm in a very structured manner or not? So questions could also be like, should let's say firm X enter a Y market? If yes, then how will they enter it, right? So coming to the 5 Cs, here they are: competition, customers, company, collaborators, and climate. So these are the 5 Cs, and I'll be talking about each one of them. So competition here means your existing customers, existing competition. So for any question that, let's say, X company that is going to venture into Y market, who are the competitors that already exist there? Are there already way too many competitors there in that market? Are there any unfair advantages that they might be getting, which you will not be able to get? Right now, it could be like a lot of competitors talking about, let's say for Netflix venturing into a particular market, is there already existing competitor there? So very important to note once you're answering any of the execution or strategy questions. Coming to customers. So for customers, you will have to think the current and the new market that you want to acquire. Are there any synergies with each other? So for example, by synergies, I mean, let's say you can think of a community, Instagram community, for example. Instagram now wants to venture into pharmacy. So if you see of it, there is really no synergy between what Instagram really does now and pharmacy. But if you were to say Instagram wants to become a marketplace for fashion, like really luxurious, the luxe sector of fashion, would it be able to do that? So you do see some energies. Does it have that ability to enter that market, or does it have that kind of a community that it can build? So that could be a likely choice for Instagram, right? Coming to company, this just means where your company really stands right now. This, if you've heard of the SWOT framework, what the SWOT framework is, it tells you the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. All of that for your company. So you will analyze whether your company has those strengths to enter into this market. What are the very evident weaknesses that you are able to see in your company? And do you have the necessary skill sets that are required to enter this market? And do you have resources, or you're signing up for too much, like more than you can bite? Collaborators is something that you'll have to think of. That can you really venture into this market without the help of other firms? So, for example, to enter the gaming field, one firm would want to acquire another firm so that they capture the larger market stake if they really want to enter into a particular segment. Collaborators just mean that can you really do it on your own, or do you really need a partner to do it with, right? Or any other firm that you want to partner with to venture into this Y market that we spoke of. What is climate? Climate is the political, economical condition that you are currently in. What you're building, does the customer really have the monetary assistance to buy that thing? Are they really even purchasing anything? Is it really that important for them to purchase in such a circumstance? This is what this means. Now coming to, so we've discussed the climate. Now, yes, coming to how you, another question, like post you've analyzed the 5 Cs, it would be that how do you really enter this market? Where in the customer journey you want to enter this market? So the customer journey, it's a really small diagram, but if you see what I'm trying to indicate is that it's a journey of what are the trigger points, pain points, where are they happy, where are they sad in their entire journey, and where in this entire journey would you like to enter as a firm if you really do. Once you decide where you want to enter, is you decide how you want to enter, or what is the business model and what is the value proposition that you're going to bring to the customers. Now this might be sounding very out of the place, but remember this structure, because we will be solving a problem and it's going to make it slightly more relevant to you then. Okay. Now another example that I have is let's say WhatsApp wants to get into payments, right? Or IG wants to delve into the food industry. So now in that user journey, there are a few things, right? So let's say IG wants to enter the food industry. So there are a few steps that you will have to see, that what does it happen? What is the journey of the customer when they're trying to, let's say, eat somewhere, because now IG is thinking of entering the food or the restaurant business. One would be, how do they really discover these restaurants? So let's say I want to go to a restaurant and I don't know what to eat, right? So I first see, okay, these are the restaurants listed and this is what I want to do. So that is called the discovery stage of things. What are the things that I want to really get from eat and where do I want to eat it, location based, right? Next step would probably be making reservations. So if I want to book a table somewhere, that would be the next step. Then would be making an order. Of course, going there and then making an order. Then would be payments. And lastly could be, maybe I want to review this restaurant, give them 5 stars or 2 stars, whatever. Now this customer journey, the 5 steps that I stated: discovery, reservation, ordering, paying, and reviewing. Where can IG really come in? By IG, I mean Instagram. So where can that really come in? So most likely it would be, since it's a community, it could be discovering places. Since most of us go on Instagram and tag places where we eat in. So the discovery bit is where it could actually come in. So you have to, and maybe also making reservations. Once you discovered is where you tap and you're like, okay, I want to make a reservation. Payments, not so much, because for that you have to build something exclusively different. The bit of synergies that I spoke of, that comes in here. So yeah, I think that's all I had to say for at least the 5 Cs, right? Okay. Another thing to notice here is the kind, when we say collaborators, right? So I'm building a product for Instagram, venturing into the food industry. There are ways to do it. When we spoke of collaborators, do I build an entirely new product within a feature within IG, or do I collaborate with another partners, like let's say Zomato or Swiggy, or there was Uber Eats earlier? So if I can collaborate with them. So now these styles are very different. Do I go independent, or can I also have like a cred style of reward based a system, reward based booking. So let's say if you have so many posts, then I'm going to let you book a premium sort of a restaurant. So how do you really generate the awareness about the future that you've built? All of that kind of can be covered in your strategy questions, and it's something that the interviewer is also looking for. I said I'll be talking about the pricing strategies. I think that's in the next slide. Yes. Few things about the pricing strategy. This most likely you will not get a question on this because so far in my journey, even the friends I've spoken to, never really gotten a question on this. Very rare such instances, but yet it's still good to know. So I'll just cover it in a couple of minutes. There are four exclusive kind of product strategies, pricing strategies. But other than that, there are umpteen if you think of. Like if you can think of a freemium model, you can think of subscriptions, a la carte. You can think of a razor blade model where it is, you have one product, you sell one of the components, and hoping that with that component, people will be buying other components as well. So razor blade means you sell a razor and you hope that people will buy the extension of it as well, right? So coming to cost plus, it means that you set it as the basic cost, whatever's costed you, just a little above it, just a little marginal price that you're going to set it as compared to the competitors. The value pricing is how much the customers are actually valuing your product. This means that the money and the time that you'll be saving from them as you're building this product, that is value pricing. Competitive pricing is you look at what how competitors have priced the product, and you generally price slightly lower than what they have priced, so that you get more market share. And lastly, you have this exponential pricing, wherein you are just correlating your prices. This is very random, and companies don't really succeed when they go for this. It is when you correlate your prices with the sales. So you say, okay, I've sold so much, so I'm going to keep on increasing the price or decreasing the price based on the sales volume. All right, enough of all this yarn. Now is the time when we're going to get our hands really dirty. And this is the problem statement that I have for you. I will be putting you all in breakout rooms. Make a note of this wrong and probably share it in the chat. You are now the PM for Azure. How are you going to grow the cloud business? So I shared the structure with you of how you'll be solving this problem. And this is the problem that I have for you today. I'll be putting you all into a breakout room for 10 minutes. And then once we are back, we'll be discussing as to how we'll solve this problem. I hope that works. Trying to see how can I put you in breakout rooms. Okay, please choose to all right. I'm going to open the breakout rooms. I hope this works. Think about it. We'll be meeting back in another 10 minutes. Okay, so the time is 9. We'll meet by 9:10. I have put the question in the chat. I hope everybody is able to see it. Folks in the room, any problem joining the breakouts? Hey folks, I'll be closing the breakout rooms in another 2 minutes. So try to close your thoughts there. All right, I see most of you are back. So would you like to share your answers of what you've discussed so far in the group? I'd like you to not just unmute yourself and answer, raise your hand and tell me which room you were from and what all you thought. So one person from each room would do. Okay. All right, Anirudh, please share your thoughts of what you all thought as a group.
Yeah, yeah. Since the first group, I thought I'll go ahead with the 5 Cs which we have discussed about. From the company's point of view, we thought of um, you know IBM Cloud, Google Workspace, and Amazon AWS, right? And then we thought of how we wanted to understand the strengths and weakness of these tools. We primarily wanted to target how they are scalable and how they can, serve the next Web3 ecosystem mainly, and how we can, understand using ML tools directly on the cloud itself, wherein that's one of the major breaking point for a lot of data heavy companies, right? So another solution what we thought of when we are trying to see one customer journey pain point is the integration of no code and low code tools, wherein since the cloud is holding a lot of the data of the organization, every employee can participate in trying to say, let's say we wanted to develop a small dashboard to see some data. So that's where AWS can actually build a lot of tools. Wherein, I mean, example of retool. So that's one of the internal collaboration tool that can be readily built by these companies. Um, the I think that's the 3 things which I came through. I mean, we didn't get the time to explore the solution.
All right, amazing. Before we head, Anirudh, I want to know from you a couple of things. when you heard the question said in terms of growth, keywords that I'm thinking of it, growth, and it said cloud business. What I hear from you is mostly around an assumption there that I was talking about cloud computing. What if I meant cloud storage? So do you think all your answers will fail then?
Cloud storage as in?
Cloud
No, I don't
storage
think
is
so. I
in
mean, one of the
OneDrive.
key indicators is like when we are trying to build ML tools on top of, let's say, I mean, Google Workspace has an amazing, ML tool kit. Like you can directly go for big queries and all. So it's one area where product analytics need not have to go out of the cloud system, the present cloud system they're trying to use. So cloud storage is one of those areas where warehousing actually comes into picture for analytics. So I think in that way it'll probably align towards the question. I think rest of the stuff I don't think so will meet it.
Okay.
Yeah. Apart from that, nothing else meets.
Okay. Going back to the very basics, right? The very first thing that I've been speaking of yesterday, today, all of it goes to who's the customer. What if me saying growth of the cloud business meant for, let's say, a variant of Google Photos cloud storage, right?
Yeah. So we thought about it as like the first thing when we collaborated, the first question is whether we are interested from B2B or B2C. So the first idea is like we thought of, okay, Google Drive, we still use it and we are still not paying for it. So I thought it is much more better to align ourselves to B2B area. I think that's an assumption we made. I'm not really sure whether it's
By the way, I'm paying for Google Cloud Storage.
Okay,
So
okay, that's really good. Yeah, I mean,
back,
Google recently introduced another unlimited feature, right? They're coming up with an unlimited feature wherein I think there is still a cap, but it's a very huge cap for an individual user. So that's where we thought of going for B2B rather than B2C.
All right.
That's the only assumption we took. Yeah.
Okay, great. No, I'm happy that you were able to put the 5C structure to a strategy, the strategy to a structure, and sounds good. All right. Anybody else would like to give it a shot? Okay, Zen, please go ahead. There's Chirag. Are you guys from the same group or is it a different group? Let's start with room 2. That's Chirag, right?
Yeah. Okay. So we'll just go after them. Yeah.
All right, sure. Chirag, you're on mute.
Yeah. So I was wondering, shall I share my screen or?
It's okay to share your screen. Do you need rights from me?
Yeah, it's saying now I got
Please
it.
check. Please check. Do you get it?
Yes. So let me know if you are able to see my screen.
Yeah, I'm able to see it.
Yeah. So I don't know which room it was, but I was with Sitesh. So we it seemed like a growth problem. So we were discussing about the company. So Microsoft has a huge dominance in business ecosystem where most large companies are using Microsoft products currently. So we thought Microsoft can push these companies to use their other who used Microsoft products to use more Azure or start using Azure if they are not using, and they can provide them like free trial or other packages kind of thing. Then collaborators, we can say like other kind of products that can be used with Azure, like people use Power BI or people use DevOps. So those features are also available in Azure cloud, so they can use cloud or specifically Azure for these purposes like DevOps, IoT, analytics, and big data. Competition is for us, it was AWS and GCP, which are also used by both B2C and B2B companies. Then for customers, how is it useful would be they get to move from on-prem to cloud. They can use file storage like Drive does. I'm not sure if Azure has this kind of feature currently, but like this is our just an idea. Easy integration, seamless flow between applications, and all Microsoft applications and database available on cloud. So let's say they don't need to store or install any application on their computers. They can use virtual machines, or they can use like everything on cloud, Excel on cloud, Outlook on cloud, and Power BI on cloud, everything. Climate. So currently climate is like government policies which require data to be stored in the same country. One such example is GDPR. India is also toying with the idea of having their own cloud. So Azure can they can build to such projects, and they have done. Like they generally create or use their data centers or only store data for a specific country or specific government. So I know something about AWS, that there is one feature, there is one AWS GOV cloud, which is only being used by the government. They don't store any other data in those data centers, but it is being maintained by AWS, and they have better encryption standards and everything. So Azure can bid on such kind of projects, that they can undertake such kind of government around such government policies.
I had a question there. Did you have to Google any of these things to understand what the competitor is doing, what really Microsoft is doing in the Azure bit?
No, actually, because I have studied a lot about AWS. Like I took some training, cloud practitioner training, so I know what cloud is. That's why.
Okay, so what if it's a question that you know nothing about? So let's say here you knew about the cloud bit, but what if it's a question wherein you do not really know what that product is? So let's say an Apple mouse, and I started asking you questions about that, and probably you might have not used it because it's such a great product, but yet still, what would your approach be then?
Then
And
again, like company, if I go by company, I'll see what others are, like Apple. So Apple mouse. So company Apple has dominance in Apple desktop, right? And iPad. So I'll start pushing the current Apple Mac users to purchase the mouse, or MacBook users, collaborators. So currently, like Mac is preferred for like high tech companies always give MacBook to their employees, right? We can
right,
ask
so
them to give.
my point being that in case there is a question wherein you do not really know in-depth answers of, who can the collaborators be, what the competition really can be, there is a Surface mouse as well, in case you did not know, and things like that. So try to get all of that from the interviewer. Like this entire process of solving a problem fails when all of us are jumping to conclusions that this is what we'll be doing and this will be my growth strategy in this case. Then we've not really clarified as to what growth can mean, or at least covered a set an assumption here that this is my assumption that this is what I mean by growth, or this is what I mean by cloud, right? So most of you thought of cloud computing. And what if the interviewer was not thinking of cloud computing, it was something else, right? So just a pointer there. Otherwise, I think amazing you folks really know what you're doing. So that's great. It's great to see that you've written everything down here, and all of this is really relevant to what I've been speaking so far.
Yeah, and like you mentioned, we should not just focus on cloud computing. So I mentioned this because I have seen, like, yeah, I understand your point that since I had a lot of idea on cloud as an ecosystem, so I could think all this. But if I have no idea about some field, then yeah, I should ask questions, and I should like clarify my assumptions with the interviewer, right?
Right. Exactly. Because then you'll end up listing having too many solutions and not knowing which one you want to say and summarize finally.
Sure.
All right. But this is great work. Okay, we let's get into another I think Zen, you wanted to come ahead for group 3 if it was right. Or group 4 was it?
Yeah, so we are group 4, I think. So Nikhil or Uday, I mean, if either one of you wants to take a shot, then, or I can maybe present.
You go ahead.
Sure. Okay. Yeah, so I think for the first 5 minutes or so, we were kind of thinking, like what does growth mean here? Whether we're talking in terms of revenue or number of users, and how much growth are we really talking about? Whether we're talking about expanding into new markets or new customers, or maybe we're just talking about expanding our services with our existing set of customers. So I think the first 5 minutes were kind of spent there, and then we kind of rushed for the later part for preparing a solution. Nevertheless, I mean, so again, we kind of use the 5C framework here. So customers are essentially all the large enterprises because of the kind of pricing strategy Azure has. So all the Fortune 500, major Fortune 500 companies, let's say, for example, and then kind of trying to analyze the competition. So Amazon, for example, has a value proposition in terms of better prices and so on and so forth. So it is kind of popular with all the mid-size companies, and so is Google with its host of other complementary services as well. Yeah, so this is about competition, and then we kind of thought about collaborators. So this includes a whole ecosystem of partners, and then maybe even some SaaS companies who have specific arrangements with Microsoft or AWS or GCP, something like that. And then we kind of thinking about the company itself. So Azure, for example, has a strength in terms of the existing set of customers it has. So they kind of build an advocacy for Azure. And also another strength could be the range of correlated services in terms of Office or I mean other services as well. For example, even LinkedIn for that matter. And then weakness, so price could be one weakness. Opportunities, so maybe Microsoft can think of in terms of expanding to mid-size companies or acquiring more clients in that space. And then threats, I can't think of any threats right now. But then, yeah, okay, so we kind of now drift into the solution space. So what we could identify is probably Microsoft could partner with a lot of SaaS businesses that are coming up in terms of, let's say, providing a range of services in terms of serverless computing, or maybe even if some company needs some data storage services, not just the computing services. So maybe kind of look into the evolving and the booming SaaS space and partner with a lot of SaaS companies for achieving this growth.
All right. Would you be able to figure any synergies in the current business and future business for Microsoft when they're delving into strengthening their cloud business?
So not very sure about it's the technical strength of Azure vis-a-vis other players. What I can think of is, because all the cloud providers offer a similar range of services, or that's something that I know of. So kind of hard to figure right now the synergy part.
Okay. All right. Now I hear you. These are really good solutions. But I would again stress back to having only one final solution that you have. When you do not ask questions, that's when you do not know what you want to really go to. What is it exactly that you want to venture into and why you want to venture into it. So that's just my observation of things. But I will also walk you through as to how I would have solved this problem. Just give me a minute. I'll share my screen. Let me know if it's visible. Okay. Oh, I hope it's visible. We had done. All right. So this was the problem statement. How would you grow the cloud business? So again, before I answer this question, I would definitely be asking some clarifying questions, which I understand in the breakout room space, it's not really that easy to come out and ask questions. But never forget, in an interview, you really, really should ask all your clarifying questions. Before we get as to what clarifying questions you should ask, let's get into what is being tested here. Now, what is the user? What is the interviewer testing you for this question on, right? So they want to know whether you can build a strategy for your firm, their firm rather, in this case, the Azure business. Are you original in your thought? So as you might have seen, the answers that we saw were rather overlapping, and we weren't able to get to one or set of at least two answers that you were very sure of as to why this is you want to do this, right? Then they also want to know whether you can think of value the value of this problem in a very structured manner. So structure to answering this question. The 5 C's were covered, but how we were covering it and how we were reaching to a solution. Again, understand only 10 minutes were given to you. How much of it can you really do? But in practice, when you have mocks with each other, when you're practicing with yourself, make it a practice of having a very structured way of answering the questions. And Some of you did jump to conclusions. Do not jump to conclusions. Growth could mean a certain thing for someone. Computing could mean something. The cloud could mean it's something different to your interviewer. And again, do you focus on what you're building? So we saw a lot of what we are going to build rather than why we should really build it for Microsoft or the Azure business. Something again to reflect on, right? So clarifying question. I would have asked, the first question that I would have asked, when you say cloud business, do you mean computing or storage? So let's say I'm the interviewer and I say, okay, I'm talking about computing. The second question I would have asked, you say that we want to improve the business. Do you mean growth or engagement through new features? So do you mean that you want more customers to use the cloud, or do you want me to build a new feature for it? So is this essentially growing the business in terms of the vertical and not customer wise? Okay. The next question would be, I'm assuming that the growth here means increase in revenue. Is that the goal? So as you see how I'm structuring these questions, I'm not asking them, what do you mean by growth? What do you mean by cloud? What do you mean by, I'm not asking them like that. I have an answer to that question and I'm asking them, is my assumption correct? So the question I'm asking here, so my assumption is that growth means that we want to increase the revenue. Are you in line with that thought? So the interviewer might say, yes, growth means increase in revenue. Or the interviewer might say, no, think more about it. So then I would suggest growth means getting more customers on board. So then they might just say, yes, that's what we think of goal as, right? So by improve, do you mean more customers? Do you mean more engagement of the current users? So ask those questions, get an answer, but not how we were doing it yesterday. They will be like, do you mean this? Do you mean no? Just have to structure, put your thought out there and see if the interviewer agrees. Another question if I would have asked is, so they have sort of not agreed to anything, what I mean by growth. So they could be like, does growth mean having more resources? So it could be that I am building the infrastructure, right? The cloud business needs to grow. Does not mean I want more customers, does not mean I want more revenue or engagement. It could mean that I want to invest in the cloud business, get more resources, build the infrastructure, and then the next step could be getting more customers. So I hope this helps in answering that question. I think you had really covered that entire thing quite well on answering the 5 C's of things. Let me know if you want me to. So I have my answer written somewhere. Do you want me to cover that answer, or is this good so far? So show it to me by a raise of hands, or you can speak up as well. It's just a few of us. So Chirag, would you want me to cover how I had answered this question?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, that would be great.
Okay, so I don't have a slide on it, but I will definitely try to. So after my clarifying questions, what I generally do, and you can compare your notes with mine. This is something that I am knowledgeable about because I have worked with Azure, right? Okay, sorry. Okay, I'm going ahead with my solution. If anybody wants to add anything or comment on anything, please write them in the comments or raise your hand. So I'm monitoring the chat as well. Okay. So, all right. So for competitors, I think you had rightly covered AWS because that has the largest market cap, at least in terms of cloud computing, since I'd asked the clarifying question and the interview agrees that yes, it's cloud computing. Other players, so major players, we would think of Google Cloud. We would think of the Azure business itself, right? But there are other minor players that we can think of, and that one of them is Dropbox. So try to not negate all of them in case they are also building their cloud infrastructure outside of storage, right? They're venturing into cloud computing. So if you know of something who is not a major player, but they're trying to do it, worth a mention. All right, so we've covered the top players. Now we also identify who has the first mover advantage in this. You had rightly covered that AWS has that mover's advantage in it. And now coming to focusing on what these competitors are doing, right? So again, AWS is the greatest market share holder. And what they currently have that probably we as Azure business would not have is that entire ecosystem, right? So they have multiple stakeholders. They are venturing with multiple ISVs. For those of you who do not know, independent software vendors, they have a lot of open source tools for them to build their infrastructure on AWS. Now, one of their weaknesses is, and I think one of you mentioned it as a strength, was pricing. The pricing structure, if you see, and I'd like to, one second, let me try to share my screen. And I want to share the pricing structure with you folks. It is so complex. I'm trying to just Google it once because I don't have it right. All right. Let me know once you're able to see my screen. So this is currently the pricing structure, which is so variant. I don't know if they try to simplify it or if rather they've made it more complex. For Linux, you have a different structure. For Windows, you have a different structure. In case you do not understand what you want to buy, it is so difficult, right? You have different sorts of containers. And for every region, you have sort of, a lot of options to choose from. And let's say me as a firm, I will really have to dedicate another resource to find out, okay, which pricing strategy works best for me so that I'm not really fooled by Amazon into buying something that I really don't need. So having so many structures is kind of is really complex for me, and I don't find it really easy to do. So maybe this is something that I need to know about Amazon, that they are not that great at this, right? Okay. Yeah, agreed. So as you saw, it is so complex. At least for me to understand, it wasn't that easy, right? Coming to the next competitor, Google. So Google has a really strong hold within cloud native apps. So they have a lot of apps. They're moving to this entire app streaming business, for which they are kind of really head on into native apps. If you look at the same process of going to the billing ways of Google, it's rather easier. They only have a few structures, simpler billing. And if you've ever used Google virtual machines, they are very fast as compared to if you've ever used Hyper-V for Microsoft. So again, these are things that you may or may not know in an interview. The best thing to do is ask. In one of the interviews that I was part of, I was rather a silent spectator in that interview. Question was asked around, how do you like Windows 8? And this person, I think, was a Mac user. They did not really know, but they tried on answering that question. It was such a weird state of scenario, rather awkward, because they never asked, they did not know the product, they did not clarify that they have never used Windows. And yet they kept on answering that question. So it was rather an awkward activity, forget being hired or not hired. So ask those questions in case you do not know what all Azure does. The interviewer will be happy to change the question for you. If you do not understand the competitors, you can't Google in an interview. So Google or Bing in the interview. So you will have to rather, depend on the interviewer to answer these questions for you. All right. And Google strength also, one of you mentioned, was in the machine learning and analytics part of it. So they have a really good mix of those things, which they are able to leverage on. Right. Coming to the second P, which is customers. So I'll probably have this open for you, wherein you can see what the 5 C's are. Let me know once you're able to see my screen. Let me know if you're able to see it. Okay. Great. So coming to the customer side of things, what we are really talking about customers is also analyzing what the customer is really inclined to. What is the customer purchasing? What are the market trends that you are actually focusing on? So one of them could be that the customer is now inclined to, as one of you mentioned, IoT, right? IoT and the security around it. Most of us are looking for, let's say, Amazon Echo Dot, in which you are able to connect a whole system with the security, the door opens on command and all of these things. Then you want faster computing because all of this requires the real time. Right. So in real time, you want faster computing. And for that is some market that can be explored, especially in terms of how secure your entire network is. Now, if I were to look, this is customers in the personal segment. So again, what I missed in your answers was whether you're thinking of all customers. One is the ISP, one is the regular customer, like you and one is also the enterprise, right? So most of us focus on enterprise. We'd like to think of all of them. So again, thinking of personal customers related to IoT and security. The enterprise customer is related in the hybrid culture. So I'm also trying to think as to what Microsoft is aligned to, and they're really big on hybrid culture, wherein they want to build collaborative experience. Again, real time requires a lot of computing in real time, right? Faster computing, and at the same time, enterprises also want some sort of with lots of big data coming into picture, we want to go into data mining and security. Is it something of Microsoft's strength or not? We'll venture later, right? We're thinking of what the customer needs could be. All right. And then industry-wise, I'm not sure if we ventured into a lot of industries. Maybe some of you who did not share your answers, you could have covered something in terms of, let's say, finance is something which requires cloud computing. Healthcare is something that actually Microsoft is doing something there. It's called Next Health Initiative. I think that's what it is called. So healthcare is something that might require computing in real time, right? And then what else did we think of? Education. So education is something that with the entire hybrid culture coming into picture, it is something that digital learning requires in the current time. Or let me also retail. So like shopping, the virtual experiences that you'd like once you're shopping now, the entire market is changing in terms of try on makeup, try on clothes. So AR, we are venturing into that is also something that enterprises could be looking into. Right. And what do they really want is to be able to forecast, to be able to become more operationally and logistically or seamless in their structures, right? In their entire end-to-end process. I see a couple of questions. Okay, no, it's just about the screen. Okay, I am sharing my screen. I think it said ISV. Okay, someone's asking what does ISV mean? ISV is an independent software vendor. So let's say you as Tesla are also kind of catering to the needs of Schneider Electric. So Schneider Electric will be an ISP, right? They're an independent software vendor, which are probably working with charging ports. So that answers the question. Okay. Coming to the third bit of it, which was the company. Now I'll be thinking of all of the things that I've thought of earlier, what my competition is doing, what my customers really need, and where can I come in? And this is where you really think of the synergies as well. So although how does it really tie to my business, right? So the company bit is where you start thinking of that. Now Microsoft, now I have this knowledge, but not everybody would, because I clearly work for the company. But again, there would be ways you can, ask your interviewer for this question. So I would know that Microsoft has the second largest share, market share in the cloud business. This comes with Azure, and they're venturing into a lot of segments, and it has the largest on-premise infrastructure with a lot of development tools and it's priced very competitively. So a lot of folks are migrating from AWS to Azure, but at the same time, AWS, of course, still has the largest market cap because of the end-to-end ecosystem. I'd like to know what is the weakness for Microsoft. I'd like to think of my company. A little bit of what you can do here. So it is not really a complete cloud end-to-end solution like AWS is, like I mentioned, and it also lacks the amount of partners or ISVs, the entire community that AWS has, right? It does not have as many professional services yet. So this is something that I would know. And then coming to collaborators bit, where can Microsoft really acquire folks? This is somewhere I will think about acquisitions, if any. I may or may not know. So I'll just call it out to my interview. At this point in time, I'm really not research if we should acquire or not. So I'll probably just mention to my interviewer that this is the next step I will be doing. But at this point in time, I do not have that knowledge. But if it were real time, I would be looking for acquisitions that I could be doing in this space, right? Now, we know that Azure right now does not have the data mining capabilities that it would probably need. So that could be one place where we would want to have acquisition. But what we do know is that Azure is very big on IoT. So they have this entire segment called Azure IoT. So maybe that is where a synergy is lying for me in terms of cloud computing. IoT and security. So this is one synergy that is lying. So I'd probably think of IoT as one of the solutions I'm kind of narrowing down to. Again, discussing with my interviewer whether it is something that they are also thinking of. They might say yes or they might say no. Now, this why I say IoT is also, let's say tomorrow I'm thinking of building a Microsoft phone, Microsoft wearable, anything of that sort. It helps us tie it to what our competitors are doing, also helping us build that base. But it may be something that Microsoft is not venturing to, right? So you again ask the goal with your interviewer, is it something that you think that Microsoft would like to do? Or is it something we want to do in the future? Is it on the roadmap? They might completely say, no, okay, we don't want to venture into wearables. We failed with so many phone products also, so we don't want to do that. So that's when you drop the answer. Don't try to push your answer because you knew so much about IoT and you would want to just be like, okay, don't do that. But for software and hardware amalgamation, your IoT is still into picture. So for that, you can still push, but don't go in for wearables and that entire ecosystem that Apple currently holds. Again, I would think of, yes, if Microsoft wants to, does it currently have any synergies in terms of what I know? So yes, Microsoft works for, big on education, right? So after the entire COVID hit, they are building a hybrid setup for, the platform is called Microsoft for Edu. That's the platform. And then for AR, VR, they have a product called Microsoft HoloLens. So again, a very big point here is the more knowledge you will have, it is very important to also, the company that you're interviewing for, have some kind of knowledge about that company, read about it, read some news about it, because any question that might just come in could be relevant to what you're going to answer. So if I knew, okay, Microsoft had HoloLens, and if I knew that they are into edutech, then that is where I will be able to answer this question better. Because if I didn't know that, I didn't know what I didn't know, then in that case, I'll be just not answering that question that well. But again, yet you can have those questions, the discussion with your interviewer before you start answering the question. All right, so lastly, I mentioned Healthcare Next, right? So that is another initiative of Microsoft. And they are kind of bringing AI to doctors. That is what they are market leaders of. So something, if you knew, you would be able to put this in your answer as well. And again, Microsoft was able to build really great connections with schools and the entire education system. So we can really leverage this. Lastly, coming to climate. Now, out of all my answers, this is one place where I'm going to, this is like the trade-off test. So what is it that I can leave behind? What is it that people will not be investing in? So current prediction, current market, we are predicting a recession. Times are tough. We know that companies are laying off. There is some hiring that's going on. There's a hiring freeze going on rather, and the companies are laying off masses, right? So in that case, people are really cognizant of what they are putting their money in. Even enterprises are putting in money until it's absolutely necessary. So what are the things that you would think are absolutely necessary in this climatic condition? Healthcare does come to mind. So no matter what the condition is, health is something that you'd always want to put first. And second that comes to mind is security. So security is something, again, you'd want to always stay safe in terms of you don't want your systems to be exposed if people are working from home, or you don't want to compromise your home safety just because, let's say, you are predicting a recession, right? So these are not related, and this is something people would still like to put their money in. So now you saw that we are kind of narrowing it down. And let's say my interviewer said that, okay, education is also something that is never going to stop and you really want to do. So primarily from all the solutions that I had, I'm going to narrow it down to 3 of them. And maybe even then I'm going to narrow it down to further just only one solution, whatever I think is the best there, right? So let's say conclusion for me would be that based on the competition, I feel that in the education market, Microsoft is doing quite well. So that is something that I want to go on. And then based on innovation, I might want to leverage AR, VR for healthcare. So these are the 2 things that I might have done. But what if you might also think that IoT was a better solution? So you list that as a solution, right? Because staying very innovative in your staying innovative in the online collaboration is what I was thinking in terms of edutech and just the education market, right? And leveraging this strength and also the AR VR hybrid state also kind of hits that innovation of things, right? And what this will lead to is give some competitive differentiation to Microsoft. and where it is able to leverage its strength and ultimately help grow revenue. So yeah, and it might just get the first mover's advantage in this place and just strengthen its market leadership. So this is how I would have structured it, coming to only just a couple of solutions. Even then, I could have narrowed it down if depending on what my interviewer is answering for me. Okay, so I think I rambled in quite a bit. Let me know if you have any questions. Okay, does any have a question?
Yeah, Fiza. Okay, so I'm kind of like wondering, like, where do we actually kind of pitch solutions here? I mean, when we're doing, let's say, this analysis, so where do we actually kind of pitch the solutions? Do we, speak out our solutions at the very end and then prioritize, and or do we, let's say, mention the solutions in between and then maybe narrow it down subsequently and then finally propose something, maybe one or two solutions, something like that?
So, like you saw, while answering the 5 Cs, while thinking of what I can answer in the 5 Cs, I was kind of navigating through a solution. I wasn't saying when I was starting with the competitors, I did not have an answer ready. When I went to the customers, I yet still did not know what the answer is. But when I went to the next bit of it as to what my company is doing and drawing the synergies, where I was trying to get closer to what I want to build, taking leverage from what I already know about customers and the competitors. And then the rest of it is kind of trying to narrow down your solution. So like I told you, the climate bit was exactly where I was able to say, okay, given the current climate, this is not something people will invest in. And these are my assumptions. I'm stating them while I'm talking through with my interviewer, and they might say, no, people will still buy this. So then you know where to incline towards in your answer. And obviously remember that the interviewer is right. So try to leverage their answers and move to a solution then. So by the end of climate is where you should actually have an answer and take 5 minutes, think about it, and give a conclusion. This is how I go about it.
Right. Yeah, so I'm kind of thinking from the perspective of circles. Circles in that sense seems very logical and very step-by-step approach to just kind of lay out the problems and then kind of arrive at the solutions. But this is kind of a little back and forth approach where discuss some of the problems and then kind of in between talk about some of the solutions, and then uh, at the end you might just as well prioritize some of those solutions and finally pitch one of them. But yeah, I mean, regardless of that, kind of helps me out in identifying the
I'll tell
right
you
way.
the difference between the two. With circles, it's mostly very user centric. So you're mostly focusing on what the user wants and doing stuff like that. With strategy questions, what comes into picture and what this framework helps you think is the marketplace. So in circles, you'll see we're not really thinking about competition and market. But when you think of a go-to-market strategy, if you should release a new feature, you have to really analyze what the market is doing and you have to have some kind of information about it, like just general information about what the entire IT industry is looking like at the current situation. So I think this is what the 5C helps thinking about the market, and the circles help thinking solely about the user when you're building a product, like a product design question. Um, Most likely, there will only be one or two strategy questions that you will only be asked, but mostly it's product design. Yet still, it's good to know because you don't want to be stuck in an interview answering something with circles framework. But as I always say that follow something that helps you set context, then you're thinking, and then you're probably summing up. So just these frameworks are just to help you memorize so that you don't forget any step. That's all. Otherwise, your answers should just come from a really broad space to a narrow space and a final conclusion.
Sure. Yeah. Thanks,
I
Lizard.
hope that makes sense. Yeah. Okay. Coming to one question that a few of you had asked me in the feedback form as to how did I really prepare for the product interviews? And I have a few answers for you that have helped me. One is the Stellar Peers community. A Stellar Peers is something, there are two things that you require for Stellar Peers. One is a working email address, and another is a LinkedIn ID. So they go through your LinkedIn and see whether you're really into product management or not, or whether you're really a proper person, like a legit, not a bot, right? A human being. And that's when they give you access to a few of their resources, which have helped me prepare. This is also for that question where someone had asked that mocks, right? So do I really need to do mocks with another person, or can I really learn on my own? This is for that kind of practice. So go through these. They have a lot of solved cases. And definitely check out their answers and practice through this. I think it exposes you to a lot of frameworks. Finally, when you go to the interview process, you don't really need a framework. You'll be automatically thinking because you've had enough practice. Second is a community. So I think Exponent is a really expensive community. I had a subscription to this while I was an employee or somewhere. So it was easy for me that way. But for folks who cannot leverage this, I think that this Hello PM community is also amazing. And what it helps you is kind of giving you the exact same content what Exponent does. So being a part of any community, I think is important. For me, it was this. For you, it can be something else, right? This book is something I swear by. This is called Cracking the PM Interview. If you do not have time to read the entire book, definitely go through chapter 13 to chapter 15. So if you read through these 3 chapters, right, you will be sorted for any product design question. Definitely read this book. I've read this multiple times. In fact, I have it right here next to me in my bookshelf. Amazing book for product interviews. And lastly, of course, as I always suggest, please do mock. If you're not comfortable doing it with a friend, put a question out for yourself, write answers for yourself, and keep on answering as to how the interviewer would answer whatever the goal is, right? Do that, and then revisit your answer. Now, next step could be with a friend, wherein they would help you how they can answer this question better, or just give you varied views. So I took lots of mocks, not to lie. And it was through being part of the Exponent community and also with folks who were into product management. So do take a lot of mocks. It really helps. All right, that's my bit for tonight. Let me know if you have any other questions. There's one thing that I would suggest before closing on. It is something that I said yesterday as well. If you do not know where to begin, pick out any application from the App Store or the Google Play Store and walk through how you would think the user journey of this product is, the major milestones of it, and identify gaps, and then try to design a product to improve that. I think this is an exercise. If again, you are not into mocks with other people, not able to find people, definitely try this as a practice. All right, that is all from me. Any questions? Any other sessions that you would prefer? Any other topics you'd like me to cover? Just throw in your thoughts here.
I would love to know like the product management life cycle your company uses, like where does it start and how does it end?
Sure, okay. That's something we can cover. Okay, anything else apart from that? Any questions?
Yeah, Fiza. So you talked about the importance of mocks. I think the importance goes without saying. I mean, you have to do a lot of mocks, but then what's a good way to also kind of practice by oneself? Whereas, you can just sit down and probably do something by yourself. So
Okay, get a question, don't see the answer to it. You will get a lot of answers on the internet for any question. Don't make it a practice. Think of it from your own terms. Pretend that you're in an interview. Write them on a piece of paper. Once you're done with that entire process, go to wherever resource you found this question. See what people have answered it to. This is one. Second is the entire app journey I spoke of. So I think outside of mock, these are things that have really helped me. And I'm not just saying it for the sake of saying. We have really done all of this as practice so as to be able to think of questions without frameworks also sometimes.
And just another add-on question. So when we're kind of analyzing, say, different products, for example, phone pay. So what I kind of thought was that I was only viewing it from one side, whereas So there is a merchant side and then there is a user side, for example, and then I'm completely oblivious to the merchant side. So should I also kind of develop that perspective, because every app, so to say, is becoming a platform nowadays, and so it always has multiple sides to it.
Yes, definitely. So always remember there is a primary persona and there will be a couple of secondary personas. Think of an umbrella of personas that will be using, let's say, Google Pay, you said Phone Pay in this case, and then sort of narrow it down to who you will be solving it for, or maybe keep on switching chairs. Solve it from the perspective of, let's say, a common user, and then solve it from the perspective of a merchant. So think of it from other seats as well. It's a good practice.
Sure, thanks. Thanks, Fiza.
Okay. One question that I don't know, I kept on thinking is, when am I really ready for the interview? Because you never really are. So most candidates count in our mock interviews they've taken. But be cognizant of the fact that sometimes when you've taken interviews, you only have to count the ones that you were successful in answering. Not you can't be like, I've taken 50 more. Were you able to answer 10 of them consecutively correctly? If yes, then you can feel ready. So that is something that was on my mind when I was preparing for these interviews. All right, let's call it a night. It's Sunday, and have a great night of whatever is left. Do feed I don't have the link to the newer feedback form, but if it is the other one, that I'm sure that somebody from Hello PM will share it with you. So do fill that out, and yeah, let me know if there is anything else I can cover. Hey, Bhavish, I see you there. Do you have the
Yeah.
feedback form?
Yeah. Shall I share it again? Feedback form.
Yes, please. You can share it in the chat itself. These folks will fill it in.
Yeah.
Fiza, Fiza, if you don't mind, the last question.
Yes, please go ahead.
Yeah. So when we come across portfolio, websites built by PM, just to make sure you project your resume or your accomplishments, what kind of portfolio just does great companies like to see? I mean, I understand, like, whenever we do a case study, there's a lot of written information, but what is the best method to represent our case studies?
Sorry, I didn't quite understand the question. Is this a question on the basis of resume? Are you saying what all is
Yeah.
really good?
Generally representing your portfolio. So coming to a portfolio, you want to see what are the case studies you generally perform, and how do you emphasize and show your strengths. Do we need
Okay.
to go for a visual representation of mock-ups that we did, or how do we generally go about a product roadmap execution, or do they like more abstract ideas to represent it in a certain way on the portfolios?
So
So
far for me,
companies like to see that.
yeah, so far for me, I've never really been asked to share a portfolio for any product management role. But for any that I have seen a couple of them with basic wireframes, wherein I'm able to see that you are user centric. So this was a basic portfolio. If you're asking in terms of portfolio, it was on Behance, where you have just designed a website, and I'm able to see whether you are user centric or not, and if you've thought of those things. Otherwise, in your CV, if you're looking for terms, just on top of my mind, what all I can share with you is customer centricity, wireframing, prototyping, uh, then product design, strategy, having solved complex problems. These are things that being cross-functional, solving with agile methodologies is something that we keep on looking for as skills, right? So all these skills, whether you were able to fulfill in business requirements, customer requirements, a few things that we keep on looking at while shortlisting CVs as well. So portfolio might not give in that kind of an insight. I think one of the really fancy ones that I saw was Adobe XD, where they had really mapped the entire prototype. So I was clicking on something, it was launching something else, and it kind of shows me, okay, that they've really thought this through. So
Yeah. So I developed some Medium post wherein I was able to do a long case studies in general and trying to understand the problem statement and try to dig about it. So do employees actually see all this Medium post which we try to develop, and try to see how structured the thinking is, and can we expect any questions on that? I mean, I totally understand it's my portfolio, so I'm completely aware of it, but do employers actually care about it?
So far, like I told you, I've not really seen job postings where this is a mandate. But if you
Okay.
bring it up, if you are posting it with someone, if you're sharing it with someone, if it's that fancy, it might just be an add-on. Like when I'm hearing of it, I understand that you already have the skills that a management requires. Management that a product role requires. So
Yeah, yeah.
those are just
It's more like
good things.
showing better than saying, right? So interested
Yeah.
in that part. So yeah,
Yeah,
only in
but
that.
typically, roles do not required you to submit it, right?
Okay. Yeah. That, that answers the question. Yeah. Thanks, Fiza.
Like, no worries. I see a question regarding pressures for PM, right? What should you really aim for? Build the skills, build as many skills you can, do side projects, and you're on the right track. You're already part of a community that is helping you learn all of these skills. So trust me, when we are seeing CVs or when we also, yeah, one thing I forgot, definitely update your LinkedIn with all the certifications and everything you're doing because we definitely check that out. Um, so if you've done it from Udemy, you've done it from Hello PM, all of these things actually count. So keep that in mind that you're doing it, all of this here. Definitely put it there because you know that there's honest work and sweat that's gone into you helping these build these skills.
All right, all right. Thank you so much. I mean, so much of insightful things that we got to know, and so much of knowledge that you shared within last 2 days. I mean, for me, especially while I was going through, it was really, really making sense yesterday also and today as well. And I'm pretty sure students who have joined this session, they must have enjoyed it. I can see the chats there as they are mentioning the session was amazing. Cool. So we are close to the end of the session, and thank you so much for coming on this platform and embracing everyone with your keen inputs and insights that you have shared. So thank you so much, Fiza, and we definitely look ahead with upcoming sessions with you with Hello PM.
All right. Thank you so much. Have a great night, folks. Bye.
All right. See you, everyone. Bye.